Well, it's interesting. The current thing at the moment is what's going on between Israel and the people, Hamas, who are fucking bombing the place. Put it this way, I feel sorry for the innocent people on both sides, because there are people who are probably from both sides who aren't particularly political, who have no interest in having their house bombed, they're losing their family, their wives and their kids. That aside, the leadership of either side I don't like. The ideologies of either side, they're both death cults, I don't like. And what I don't really like is that this Friday, the religion of peace has decided that after prayer time on a Friday, it wants to kick off in all the major cities in Europe, including our major cities over here. And I'm wondering how this one's going to play out. And I'd love to see exactly how the news writes this one up, and how the ever tolerant, ever polite, ever diversity is our strength culture bunch of idiots are going to write this one up. Because if you'd have asked the average person, do you want to flood this country full of Islam, or do you want to flood this country full of people who are intolerant, or do you want to flood this country full of people that call you either goyim or infidel or whatever else they call you, right? Not particularly, right? What if you'd have asked them, do you actually want to deal with the fallout of these people's dislike for each other in your country, and your country will have to pick up the bill for the damage caused and the misery and the upset and the cultural enrichment, that is the violence and the knife crime and all the other stuff that goes with it, and also how the police what goes on? Because say for instance a bunch of Tommy Robinson supporters came out to say, by the way, we stand against our kids being raped by a certain ideology or people from that ideology, we get battered fucking senseless by the police. Why? I know, I've been there before. They come out in riot shields or whatever, but when you get BLM out there, they go out there in just short sleeve shirts and a hat on to get ironed out, right? And it seems that when they're policing Islam, they always use gently because we don't want to get called racist. Who gives a fuck? Islam isn't a race anyway. Have you ever looked at the people that support it? They're every different colour that you could imagine. So it isn't a race, so you're not being racist. You're policing, or you're not in the case, probably fucking is. Now I don't have a great deal of knowledge, or I haven't seen much about, say for instance, the Jews demonstrate over here, so I can't speak on that particular term. I'm sure that after a while, as this conflict goes on and they feel the need to enact it out on the streets of every major city throughout Europe, we'll get a lot more accustomed to it. And I might be able to comment, but at the moment I'll have to reserve until it happens. But one thing's for sure, that it seems that over there, Israel, the Jewish, are more powerful, but I have to say, when you come to the cities of Europe, there's going to be a lot more Muslims. That's a fact. And it does seem that you kind of reap what you sow. When there's a certain group of people that are pushing, right, to get foreigners out of their country, but what they want to actually do is then export them to Europe. Okay, had you thought about how that might actually work out for the Jews of Europe, by the way? You probably didn't, because, well, you couldn't have done. But here's the thing, while you have a superiority, obviously, within Israel and the surrounding areas, you're stronger there, right? Just remember, you have an incredibly small population in the rest of Europe, where you have now dished out millions and millions of people from the religion of peace, who incidentally, right, if it was any shock to you, fucking hate you, all right? I mean, there's no love lost. I don't think either side like each other, right, to put that bluntly, all right? But you're probably going to claim oppression and say that you're the victim of this or the victim of that. But if you hadn't sent them over to Europe, then it would have probably been a much safer place for you. But here's the thing, there you did. You thought that obviously having a homeland for yourself, right, and making sure that, I mean, let's not talk about what you did to the Ethiopian Jewish over there, that's a bit unforgivable, but hey, we've covered that one up. But what you want to do is make sure that you get out any of these people from Islam that are a problem to you, and then send them to Europe. And in so doing, as I say, you're going to cause the Jews of Europe, your Jewish people, your you know, your brothers, your sisters, or whatever, you're going to cause them massive problems, and we're going to see this happen out in the streets. Now, our police, which don't turn up to our burglaries, that don't turn up to a lot of the things that happen unless you, I don't know, if you say something that's politically incorrect, they'll be on you like a ton of bricks. They're now going to be overstretched policing mosques and synagogues all over, well, Great Britain, because they'll be worried about appraisals and attacks and stuff like this. And I said that the way they're going to destroy Europe and its economy, right, which they have to do to reset the economy, because I've been through this before, right? If you're not sure, watch previous videos, right? But it has to be reset. And I was thinking, how are they going to do this? Well, it's great. What you do is you bring in the third world with its lack of tolerance and lack of empathy, and it's, I don't follow the rules, I do what the fuck I want because Allah says, or whoever I want. So what they're going to do is you're going to end up with basically running battles and civil wars in all the major cities all throughout Europe, and it'll spread to the towns as well, because it does. And what we'll have is our place will go downhill so badly, our economy will go through the floor, we'll end up broke more than we are. When I say broke, I know we're in huge amounts of debt, and we're also in debt to who? Private banking. Who owns the banks? Oh, nobody talks about that, do they? Ever. But anyway, yes, our country's going to end up basically like a third world shithole, the exact plan that they had, because after this misery plays out for the next 20 or 30 years on the streets of our towns and cities all throughout Europe, and we end up being, all of us, fighting everybody, so that you'll have Jews against Arabs, or Jewish against Muslim, you'll have blacks against whoever they perceive to be the enemy, which is predominantly speaking white. So you're going to have all of this play out, and all of this was planned, and you have to ask why. Most people haven't got the balls to ask why, but you really should. And all of this, by the way, if you start looking into the history, some of them will say that this goes back thousands of years, okay, right? And then others, from whichever side, will say that actually that's a myth. The problem here is that the Brits, from the early 1900s onwards, right, had promised different people, different parts of the land over there, right, to make sure that they backed them up in the war against the fall of, and the empire will come to me in a minute, but basically the Arab Empire, it will come to me, you can put it in the comments in a second. And what they did was they bribed all sides they could, and tribesmen and all the rest of it, saying you can have this, you can have that, you can have the other. And then when the time actually came, people felt like they'd been used and had their nose cut off, and actually they've been disingenuous or whatever. Perhaps the Brits had a bit, but if you lot hadn't been so completely fucking intolerant to each other and hate each other with such a fucking passion, then maybe you could have rubbed along as neighbours. But that's never going to happen, is it? And I have to be honest, you say that they're all going to jump on and say, I stand with Israel. Okay. Well, you could look back in history and look at all the different things that maybe Israel did. Or what about that time that they were doing war crimes, and they bombed the fucking shit out of that American listening ship because he was recording them do it? I mean, we can talk about loads of things like that. They're not the innocent people you'd like to think. When I say, and I'm talking about the management here, all right, there are people from, as I say, both sides, the little people, who always get fucked up in these wars. Because the rich and the powerful that create these wars are hidden away somewhere safe as houses, normally. Very rare you'll ever see one of them get fucking hit, is it? But no, it's the little people that want to just crack on with life, that may be stuck under the oppression of Islam or Judaism, I don't know. I mean, I know that there's people within Islam that just go along with it for the peaceful life. And I expect it's probably maybe the same with Jewish folk. I mean, you might get kids who are brought up that they might be more, I don't know, more modern, more progressive, that they go along with it, keep mum happy, or dad happy, or the family happy. I don't know. Either way, these people just want to get on with their lives, and now some of them are living without fucking power, electric, and they're being bombed, and the other side are being bombed as well, and you've got all the next fucking load of shit. And let's be honest, now you've got the death cult, which will come out with their car bombs and suicide bombs and whatever else, and off it goes. Now, I'm really quite interested to see how exactly the West is going to get pulled into this, because it is, and it will, and where this will lead. Don't forget, when you look at some of the wars in the past, they started away like miles away and they ended up as a world war. The history that we got of that may not always be accurate about the entire reasoning of why that happened, because let's be honest, the victors get to paint history, don't they? So, but there it is. But while I'm now going to study a lot more about that period of history to find out a lot more about it, one thing we can be sure that you don't have to be a historian is this will impact us in Great Britain, in England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, in Europe, and this is going to have a massive falling out. And I wonder at which part the people in those held hotels are going to come out to support their brethren, and how that's going to affect us. Now, there is a video out there, as I said, I don't know if I put it out there in a video yet, that some mush has got his voice changed and claiming that he had guns and all the rest of it in there. I believe that to be a complete fucking hoax. And I'm afraid that other YouTubers have gone along with it, and I disagree with it, but I won't name them, and I feel sorry that they believed it. But this is a hoax. There are people that get off on hoaxing, by the way. Take, for instance, you go back to Peter Sutcliffe when he was murdering all those prostitutes up north. Well, there was another guy, and I can't remember his name now, an alcoholic, who decided he'd call in, pretend he was Yorkshire Ripper. And he'd studied the case a bit, so he knew some facts. And because of him, basically they rerouted the investigation because they were on the right track to getting Sutcliffe. They've already interviewed him about 6-7 times. Anyway, this guy totally rerouted stuff and manpower, and as a consequence, more women got killed. Well, anyway, much later on in life, they found him, and he went to prison for it. I digress. But anyway, going back to the story we have now, I'm going to watch this unfold. And I have to say that, as I'm no great fan of the ideologies of both sides, they are a death cult, and they're no great fan of us, I feel sorry for the people, as I say, that are going to get killed, that really had wanted fuck all to do with this probably, and that just wanted to get on with life. So there it is. Let me know what you think in the comments. I do like to hear. Incidentally, if you do a perfunctory search for me, Reverend Simon Sideways, you have to put YouTube to get my stuff up. If you just put Reverend Simon Sideways, you'll get stuff from years ago come up. And you might notice that I'm not getting many views at the moment. There is a reason for this. I'm in Google's bad books, YouTube's bad books. Why? You can work that out for yourself. But there it is. Anyway, we will battle on. We will not go away. And if the worst comes to the worst, I'll start throwing it out there on Rev on a Run, which doesn't seem to be so in the gulag. One way or the other, I will keep going. Now I've chucked some money into the my kit at home, because when you see some of these YouTubers do podcasts, they've got one camera who's on the host, that would be me. Then you want a camera directly on the guy that you're interviewing, and maybe a couple of other cameras thrown up there, and you want to see some at the same time. I couldn't do that with my old setup, and it was a bit, well, it was a struggle. So I just chucked 500 quid in the kitty for something about this big that goes into the back of the computer, and I'm kind of hoping that that will give you a much better viewing experience. And we've got a new sound deck that I've got a guy coming around to work that all out for me, because he's a sound engineer for a lot of these famous bands, and I haven't got a clue. So once he's set that up, I'm not allowed to touch it, but I won't need to. And that means you'll get better audio and a better visual. And I plan to get people come around the house and we'll do podcasts and stuff, but I've got to get it right first. But no, so if anybody's from the system, whatever it is, I'm not going away. You might think I am. What I'm actually doing is working up and building enough money up that at some point, because I'm looking at, there's a possibility of something else in the pipeline that I may go off the radar for a while, because it'll earn me a lot of money. It's legitimate, it's farming basically. But with that amount of money, I could actually then give up working for, say, for instance, 6 months a year and concentrate on YouTube, because I'd have money in the bank to sustain myself. So I'm not going away, in case you thought it was. Anyway, hope you're all well and good. And weather's shit, but it's seasonal. This is actually how it's meant to be. So last week was a bit odd, but yeah, and there it is. And then later on in the week, maybe at the beginning of next week, we're going to get snow. But don't get your hopes up. It's up in Scotland where you'd expect it to be. There you go. Anyway, right, I'm off. I will see you in a bit.